Zarathustra's Prologue. When Zarathustra was 30 years old, he left his home and the lake of his home and went into the mountains. Here he enjoyed his spirit and his solitude, and for 10 years did not tire of it. But at last a change came over his heart, and one morning he rose with the dawn, stepped before the sun, and spoke to it thus: "You great star, what would your happiness be had you not those for whom you shine? For 10 years you have climbed to my cave. You would have tired of your light and of the journey had it not been for me and my eagle and my serpent." But we waited for you every morning, took your overflow from you, and blessed you for it. Behold, I am weary of my wisdom, like a bee that has gathered too much honey. I need hands outstretched to receive it. I would give away and distribute, until the wise among men find joy once again in their folly, and the poor in their riches. For that I must descend to the depths, as you do in the evening when you go behind the sea, and still bring light to the underworld, you overrich star. Like you, I must go down, as is said by man, to whom I want to descend. So bless me then, you quiet eye that can look even upon an all too great happiness without envy. Bless the cup that wants to overflow, that the water may flow from it golden and carry everywhere the reflection of your delight. Behold, this cup wants to become empty again, and Zarathustra wants to become man again. Thus Zarathustra began to go under. Zarathustra descended alone from the mountains, encountering no one. But when he came into the forest, all at once there stood before him an old man who had left his holy cottage to look for roots in the woods. And thus spoke the old man to Zarathustra: "No stranger to me is this wanderer. Many years ago he passed this way. Zarathustra he was called, but he has changed. At that time you carried your ashes to the mountains. Would you now carry your fire into the valleys? Do you not fiend to be punished as an arsonist?" Yes, I recognize Zarathustra. His eyes are pure, and Around his mouth there hides no disgust. Does he not walk like a dancer? Zarathustra has changed. Zarathustra has become a child. Zarathustra is an awakened one. What do you now want among the sleepers? You lived in your solitude as in the sea, and the sea carried you. Alas, would you now climb ashore? Alas, would you again drag your own body? Zarathustra answered, I love man. Why, asked the saint, did I go into the forest and the desert? Was it not because I loved man all too much? Now I love God. Man I love not. Man is for me too imperfect a thing. Love of man would kill me. Zarathustra answered, did I speak of love? I bring men a gift. Give them nothing. Said the saint. Rather, take part of their load and help them to bear it. That will be best for them, if only it does you good. And if you want to give them something, give no more than alms, and let them beg for that. Answered Zarathustra, I give no alms. For that I am not poor enough. The saint laughed at Zarathustra and spoke thus. Then see to it that they accept your treasures. They are suspicious of hermits and do not believe that we come with gifts. Our steps only through the streets. And what if at night, in their beds, they hear a man walk by long before the sun has risen? They'll probably ask themselves, where is the thief going? Do not go to man. Stay in the forest. Go rather even to the animals. Why do you not want to be as I am, a bear among bears, a bird among birds? And what is the saint doing in the forest? Asked Zarathustra. The saint answered, I make songs and sing them, and when I make songs, I laugh, cry, and hum. Thus I praise God. With singing, crying, laughing, and humming, I praise the God who is my God. But what do you bring us as a gift? When Zarathustra had heard these words, he bade the saint farewell and said, what could I have to give you? But let me go quickly lest I take something from you. And thus they separated, the old one and the man, laughing as two boys laugh. But when Zarathustra was alone, he spoke thus to his heart, could it be possible This old saint in the forest has not yet heard anything of this, that God is cuddle.
When Zarathustra came into the next town, which lies on the edge of the forest, he found many people gathered together in the market-place, for it had been promised that there would be a tightrope walker. And Zarathustra spoke thus to the people: I teach you the overman. Man is something that shall be overcome. What have you done to overcome him? All beings so far have created something beyond themselves, and do you want to be the ebb of this great flood and even go back to the beasts rather than overcome man? What is the ape to man? A laughing-stock or a painful embarrassment? And man shall be just that for the overman, a laughing-stock or a painful embarrassment. You have made your way from worm to man, and much in you is still worm. Once you were apes, and even now, too, man is more ape than any ape. Whoever is the wisest among you is also a mere conflict and cross between plant and ghost. But do I bid you become ghosts or plants? Behold, I teach you the overman. The overman is the meaning of the earth. Let your will say, the overman shall be the meaning of the earth. I beseech you, my brothers, remain faithful to the earth, and do not believe those who speak to you of otherworldly hopes. Poison mixers are they, whether they know it or not. Despisers of life are they, decaying and poisoned themselves, of whom the earth is weary, so let them go. Once the sin against God was the greatest sin, but God died, and these sinners died with him. To sin against the earth is now the most dreadful thing, and to esteem the entrails of the unknowable higher than the meaning of the earth. Once the soul looked contemptuously upon the body, and then this contempt was the highest. She wanted the body meagre, ghastly, and starved. Thus she hoped to escape it and the earth. Oh, this soul herself was still meagre, ghastly, and starved, and cruelty was the lust of this soul. But you, too, my brothers, tell me, what does your body proclaim of your soul? Is not your soul poverty and filth and wretched contentment? Verily, a polluted stream is man. One must be a sea to be able to receive a polluted stream without becoming unclean. Behold, I teach you the overman, he is this sea, in him your great contempt can go under. What is the greatest experience you can have? It is the hour of the great contempt. The hour in which your happiness, too, arouses your disgust, and even your reason and your virtue. The hour when you say, "What matters my happiness?" It is poverty and filth and wretched contentment. But my happiness ought to justify existence itself. The hour when you say, "What matters my reason?" Does it crave knowledge as the lion his food, or it is poverty and filth and wretched contentment? The hour when you say, "What matters my virtue?" As yet it has not made me rage. How weary I am of my good and my evil! All that is poverty and filth and wretched contentment. The hour when you say, "What matters my justice?" I do not see that I am flames and fuel. But the just are flames and fuel. The hour when you say, "What matters my pity?" Is not pity the cross on which he is nailed who loves man? But my pity is no crucifixion. Have you yet spoken thus? Have you yet cried thus? Oh, that I might have heard you cry thus! Not your sin but your thrift cries to heaven, your meanness even in your sin cries to heaven. Where is the lightning to lick you with its tongue? Where is the frenzy with which you should be inoculated? Behold, I teach you the overman, he is this lightning, he is this frenzy. When Zarathustra had spoken thus, one of the people cried, "Now we have heard enough about the tightrope walker, now let us see him tool," and all the people laughed at Zarathustra. But the tightrope walker, believing that the word concerned him, began his performance. Zarathustra, however, beheld the people and was amazed. Then he spoke thus: "Man is a rope, tied between beast and overman, a rope over an abyss. A dangerous across, a dangerous on the way, a dangerous looking back, a dangerous shuddering and stopping." What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end. What can be loved in man is that he is an overture and a going under. I love those who do not know how to live, except by going under, for they are those who cross over. I love the great despisers because they are the great reverers and arrows of longing for the other shore. I love those who do not first seek behind the stars for a reason to go under and be a sacrifice, but who sacrifice themselves for the earth, that the earth may someday become the overman's. I love him who lives to know, and who wants till now so that the overman may live someday. And thus he wants to go under. I love him who works and invents to build a house for the overman and to prepare earth, animal, and plant for him, for thus he wants to go under. I love him who loves his virtue, for virtue is the will to go under and an arrow of longing. I love him who does not hold back one drop of spirit for himself, but wants to be entirely the spirit of his virtue, thus he strides over the bridge as spirit. I love him who makes his virtue his addiction and his catastrophe. For his virtue's sake he wants to live on and to live no longer. I love him who does not want to have too many virtues. One virtue is more virtue than two, because it is more of a. Noose on which his catastrophe may hang. I love him whose soul squanders itself, who wants no thanks and returns none, for he always gives away and does not want to preserve himself. I love him who is abashed when the dice fall to make his fortune, and asks, "Am I then a crooked gambler?" For he wants to perish. I love him who casts golden words before his deeds. And always does even more than he promises, for he times wants to go under. I love him who just pounds future and redeems past generations, for he wants to perish of the present. I love him who chastens his God because he loves his God, for he must perish of the wrath of his God. I love him whose soul is deep, even in being wounded, and who can perish of a small experience, thus he goes gladly over the bridge. I love him whose soul is over full so that he forgets himself, and all things are in him, thus all things spell his going under. I love him who has a free spirit and a free heart, thus his head is only the entrails of his heart, but his heart drives him to go under. I love all those who are as heavy drops, falling one by one out of the dark cloud that hangs over men. They herald the advent of lightning, and, as heralds, they perish. Behold, I am a herald of the lightning and a heavy drop from the cloud, but this lightning is called overman. When Zarathustra had spoken these words, he beheld the people again and was silent. There they stand. He said to his heart, there they laugh. They do not understand me, I am not the mouth for these ears. Must one smash their ears before they learn to listen with their eyes? Must one clatter like kettle drums and preachers of repentance? Or do they believe only the stammerer? They have sin, a thing of which they are proud. What do they call that which makes them proud? Education they call it, it distinguishes them from goat herds. That is why they do not like to hear the word contempt applied to them. Let me then address their pride. Let me speak to them of what is most contemptible, but that is the last man. And thus spoke Zarathustra to the people, the time has come for man to set himself a goal. The time has come for man to plant the seed of his highest hope. His soil is still rich enough. But one day this soil will be poor and domesticated, and no tall tree will be able to grow in it. Alas, the time is coming when man will no longer shoot the arrow of his longing beyond man, and the string of his bow will have forgotten how to whirl. I say unto you, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. I say unto you, you still have chaos in yourselves. Alas, the time is coming when man will no longer give birth to a star. Alas, the time of the most despicable man is coming, he that is no longer able to despise himself. Behold, I show you the last man. What is love? What is creation? What is longing? What is a star? Thus asks the last man, and he blinks. The earth has become small, and on it hops the last man, who makes everything small. His race is as ineradicable as the flea beetle, the last man lives longest. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. They have left the regions where it was hard to live, for one needs warmth. One still loves one's neighbor and rubs against him, for one needs warmth. becoming sick and harboring suspicion are sinful to them, one proceeds carefully. A fool, whoever still stumbles over stones or human beings. A little poison. Now and then, that makes for agreeable dreams. And much poison in the end, for an agreeable death. One still works, for work is a form of entertainment. But one is careful lest the entertainment be too harrowing. One no longer becomes poor or rich, both require too much exertion. Who still wants to rule? Who obey? Both require too much exertion. No shepherd and one herd. Everybody wants the same, everybody is the same. Whoever feels different goes voluntarily into a madhouse. Formerly, all the world was mad, say the most refined, and they blink. One is clever and knows everything that has ever happened, so there is no end of derision. One still quarrels, but one is soon reconciled, else it might spoil the digestion. One has one's little pleasure for the day and one's little pleasure for the night, but one has a regard for health. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. And here ended Zarathustra's first speech, which is also called the prologue, for at this point he was interrupted by the clamour and delight of the crowd. "Give us this last man, Zarathustra," they shouted. "Tum us into these last men. Then we shall make you a gift of the Overman." And all the people jubilated and clucked with their tongues. But Zarathustra became sad and said to his heart, "They do not understand me, I am not the mouth for these ears. I seem to have lived too long in the mountains, I listened too much to brooks and trees, now I talk to them as to goat herds. My soul is unmoved and bright as the mountains in the morning. But they think I am cold and I jeer and make dreadful jests. And now, they look at me and laugh, and as they laugh they even hate me. There is ice in their laughter. Then something happened that made every mouth dumb and every eye rigid. For meanwhile the tightrope walker had begun his performance. He had stepped out of a small door and was walking over the rope, stretched between two towers and suspended over the marketplace and the people. When he had reached the exact middle of his course, the small door opened once more and a fellow in motley clothes, looking like a jester, jumped out and followed the first one with quick steps. "Forward, lame footle!" he shouted in an awe-inspiring voice. "Forward, lazybones, smuggler, pale-face, or I shall tickle you with my heel. What are you doing here between towers? The tower is where you belong. You ought to be locked up. You block the way for one better than yourself." And with every word he came closer and closer, but when he was but one step behind, the dreadful thing happened which made every mouth dumb and every eye rigid. He uttered a devilish cry and jumped over the man who stood in his way. This man, however, seeing his rival win, lost his head and the rope, tossed away his pole, and plunged into the depth even faster, a whirlpool of arms and legs. The marketplace became as the sea when a tempest pierces it. The people rushed apart and over one another, especially at the place where the body must hit the ground. Zarathustra, however, did not move, and it was right next to him that the body fell, badly maimed and disfigured, but not yet dead. After a while the shattered man recovered consciousness and saw Zarathustra. Kneeling beside him. "What are you doing here?" he asked at last. "I have long known that the devil would trip me. Now he will drag me to hell. Would you prevent him?" "By my honor, friend," answered Zarathustra, "all that of which you speak does not exist. There is no devil and no hell. Your soul will be dead even before your body. Fear nothing further." The man looked up suspiciously. "If you speak the truth," he said, "I lose nothing when I lose my life. I am not much more than a beast that has been taught to dance by blows and a few meagre morsels." "By no means," said Zarathustra. "You have made danger your vocation. There is nothing contemptible in that. Now you perish of your vocation, for that I will bury you with my own hands." When Zarathustra had said this, the dying man answered no more, but he moved his hand as if he sought Zarathustra's hand in thanks. Meanwhile the evening came, and the marketplace hid in darkness. Then the people scattered, for even curiosity and terror grow weary. But Zarathustra sat on the ground near the dead man, and he was lost in thought, forgetting the time. At last night came, and a cold wind blew over the lonely one. Then Zarathustra rose and said to his heart, "Verily, it is a beautiful catch of fish that Zarathustra has brought in today. Not a man has he caught but a corpse." Human existence is uncanny and still without meaning. A jester can become man's fatality. I will teach men the meaning of their existence, the overman, the lightning out of the dark cloud of man. But I am still far from them, and my sense does not speak. To their senses. To men I am still the mean between a fool and a corpse. Dark is the night, dark are Zarathustra's ways. Come, cold, stiff companion. I shall carry you where I may bury you with my own hands. When Zarathustra had said this to his heart, he hoisted the corpse on his back and started on his way. And he had not taken 100 steps when a man sneaked up to him and whispered in his ear, and behold, it was the jester from the tower. "Go away from this town, Zarathustra," said he. "There are too many here who hate you. You are hated by the good and the just, and they call you their enemy and despiser. You are hated by the believers in the true faith, and they call you the danger of the multitude. It was your good fortune that you were laughed at, and verily, you talked like a jester. It was your good fortune that you stooped to the dead dog. When you lowered yourself so far, you saved your own life for today. But go away from this town, or tomorrow I shall leap over you, one living over one dead." And when he had said this, the man vanished. But Zarathustra went on through the dark lanes. At the gate of the town he met the grave diggers. They shone their torches in his face, recognized Zarathustra, and mocked him. "Zarathustra carries off the dead dog. How nice that Zarathustra has become a grave digger, for our hands are too clean for this roast. Would Zarathustra steal this bite from the devil? Well then, we wish you a good meal. If only the devil were not a better thief than Zarathustra, he will steal them both, he will gobble up both." And they laughed and put their heads together. Zarathustra never said a word and went his way. When he had walked 2 hours, past forests and swamps, he heard so much of the hungry howling of the wolves that he himself felt hungry. So he stopped at a lonely house in which a light was burning. "Like a robber, hunger overtakes me," said Zarathustra. "In forests and swamps my hunger overtakes me, and in the deep of night. My hunger is certainly capricious. Often it comes to me only after a meal, and today it did not come all day. Where could it have been?" And at that Zarathustra knocked at the door of the house. An old man appeared, carrying the light, and asked, "Who is it that comes to me and to my bad sleep?" "A living and a dead man," said Zarathustra. "Give me something to eat and to drink, I forgot about it during the day." He who feeds the hungry refreshes his own soul, thus speaks wisdom. The old man went away, but returned shortly and offered Zarathustra bread and wine. "This is an evil region for the hungry," he said, "that is why I live here. Beast and man come to me, the hermit. But bid your companion, too, eat and drink, he is wearier than you are." Zarathustra replied, "My companion is dead, I should hardly be able to persuade him." "I don't care," said the old man peevishly. "Whoever knocks at my door must also take what I offer. Eat and be off." Thereupon Zarathustra walked another 2 hours, trusting the path and the light of the stars, for he was used to walking at night and he liked to look in the face of all that slept. But when the dawn came, Zarathustra found himself in a deep forest, and he did not see a path anywhere. So he laid the dead man into a hollow tree, for he wanted to protect him from the wolves, and he himself lay down on the ground and the moss, his head under the tree. And soon he fell asleep, his body weary but his soul vernoved. For a long time Zarathustra slept, and not only dawn passed over his face but the morning too. At last, however, his eyes opened, amazed. Zarathustra looked into the woods and the silence, amazed. He looked into himself. Then he rose quickly, like a seafarer who suddenly sees land, and jubilated, for he saw a new truth. And thus he spoke to his heart. "An insight has come to me, companions I need, living ones, not dead companions, and corpses whom I carry with myself wherever I want to. Living companions I need, who follow me because they want to follow themselves wherever I want. An insight has come to me, let Zarathustra speak not to the people but to companions. Zarathustra shall not become the shepherd and dog of a herd. To lure many away from the herd, for that I have come. The people and the herd shall be angry with me, Zarathustra wants to be called a robber by the shepherds. Shepherds, I say, but they call themselves the good and the just. Shepherds, I say, but they call themselves believers in the true faith. Behold the good and the just. Whom do they hate most? The man who breaks their tables of values, the breaker, the law-breaker, yet he is the creator. Behold the believers of all faiths. Whom do they hate most? The man who breaks their tables of values, the breaker, the law-breaker, yet he is the creator. Companions, the Creator seeks, not corpses, not herds and believers. Fellow creators, the Creator seeks. Those who write new values on new tablets. Companions, the Creator seeks, and fellow harvesters, for everything about him is ripe for the harvest. But he lacks 100 sickles, so he plucks ears and is annoyed. Companions, the Creator seeks, and such as know how to whet their sickles. Destroyers they will be called, and despisers of good and evil. But they are the harvesters and those who celebrate. Fellow creators, Zarathustra seeks, fellow harvesters and fellow celebrants, what are herds and shepherds and corpses to him? And you, my first companion, farewell. I buried you well in your hollow tree, I have hidden you well from the wolves. But I part from you, the time is up. Between dawn and new. Truth has come to me. No shepherd shall I be, nor grave digger. Never again shall I speak to the people, for the last time have I spoken to the dead. I shall join the creators, the harvesters, the celebrants, I shall show them the rainbow and all the steps to the overman. To the hermits I shall sing my song, to the lonesome and the twosome, and whoever still has ears for the unheard of his heart shall become heavy with my happiness. To my goal I will go on my own way, over those who hesitate and lag behind I shall leap. Thus let my going be their going under. 10. This is what Zarathustra had told his heart when the sun stood high at noon, then he looked into the air. Questioning, for overhead he heard the sharp call of a bird. And behold! An eagle soared through the sky in wide circles, and on him there hung a serpent, not like prey but like a friend, for she kept herself wound around his neck. "These are my animals," said Zarathustra, and was happy in his here-one-tea. The proudest animal under the sun and the wisest animal under the sun, they have gone out on a search. They want to determine whether Zarathustra is still alive. Verily, do I still live? I found life more dangerous among men than among animals. On dangerous paths walks Zarathustra. May my animals lead me. When Zarathustra had said this, he recalled the words of the saint in the forest, sighed, and spoke thus to his heart, "That I might be wiser. That I might be wise through and through like my serpent. But there I ask the impossible, so I ask my pride that it always go along with my wisdom. And when my wisdom leaves me one day, alas, it loves to fly away, let my pride then fly with my folly." Thus Zarathustra began to go under. Zarathustra's speeches. In the three metamorphoses. Of three metamorphoses of the spirit I tell you, how the spirit becomes a camel, and the camel, a lion, and the lion, finally, a child. There is much that is difficult for the spirit, the strong reverent spirit that would bear much, but the difficult and the most difficult are what its strength demands.